Hello and welcome to the College Planning Workshop. My name is Ron Foisey and I'm here today from the College Resource Center. College Resource Center is a company that specializes in helping families navigate the treacherous process of college planning. College Resource Center was started in 2000 by Murray Miller. He was joined by Scott Greenemeyer. Scott and Murray are our CEO and COO respectively, and they're focusing exclusively on the college planning process. I got started in this in 1994 doing traditional financial planning, earned a CFP designation, did traditional planning for a number of years. By 2005, I realized that the traditional approaches to financial planning were not really helping people enough in preparing for the whole college process. So I started a college planning company on my own, did it on my own for a number of years. In 2009, I merged my company with the College Resource Center and have been working with Murray and Scott ever since then. Today, we're really going to go in depth into the college planning process, and I'm going to encourage you to get a pencil and a paper and get comfortable, settle yourself in, and we're going to go through this process soup to nuts. So let's get started. We're going to begin by talking about a number of challenges that families face in the whole process of planning for college. We're going to start with the cost of college today, which has gotten unbelievably expensive. From 1999 to 2009, the cost of college has risen 92%. So it has essentially doubled in that 10-year period of time. Now, in that same 10-year period of time, 99 to 2009, the S&P 500, a good benchmark for the stock market, went down 9%. So if you've been saving and investing your money, your resources are going down. The housing market collapsed in 2007 and 2008, and a lot of the equity that many of us have in our homes went down. So we were feeling a lot poorer. Meanwhile, college costs are doubling. In fact, since 1985, cost of sending your kids to college has gone up 500%. So this extraordinary increase in the cost of college has put tremendous pressures on families to succeed. At the same time, the number of kids applying to school has gone through the charts as well. 1999 to 2009, the number of kids attending school went up 37% over the previous 10 years. So there's a tremendous amount of admissions pressure today in addition to figuring out how to pay for it. All of these things are putting a tremendous amount of pressure on the families in terms of figuring out how does this whole thing going to work. The college planning process has four main components to it: student marketing, college search, applications, and funding, all driven and focused around the whole college admissions process. What we're going to be talking about today is coming up with an optimized process so that we're going to help you and your sons and daughters figure out the best way to get the best fit school for them. And we're going to start this out by really taking a look right now on student marketing. What we're talking about with marketing is that colleges are continually marketing their services to your family and to your sons and daughters. It's really important to come up with an optimal process that you're going to be marketing back to them so that you're going to need to focus on the high school coursework that the kids are taking, the standardized tests, the student attributes. There's a big difference in what's going to be required to get into these schools depending on the kind of college or university your kids are applying to. At a large state university, they're going to be putting most of their focus on the standardized test scores and the grades that your son or daughter is getting in high school. That accounts for about 90 or 95% of the whole admissions process. Those schools have too many kids and have too many applications to really focus on the finer parts of the admissions process. At many of the smaller private liberal arts colleges, the test scores, the SATs, the ACTs, for example, and the GPA, class rank, those types of things, really can only account for about 50% of the overall admissions thing. And the rest of the student attributes are coming into play there. We'll talk about what those are. But what it means is it is critically important to have a full resume and brag sheet developed early on in the process and work on that as part of your goal, depending on the kind of school that you're going to be applying to. it's important to know early on what kind of high school curriculum is going to be required for the admissions into the top 2, 3, 4, 5 schools that your kids are applying to, whether that's a weighted or unweighted GPA. And they're going to start looking at your grades starting with the freshman year in high school. They're also going to take a look at the high school grades. So you can't slack off once you get into your high school senior year and say, all right, everything's in the can. I've already applied for school. They're going to take a look at that. They're also going to find out what the strength of schedule is going to be. How much did your son or daughter push themselves through the admissions process, through honors, AP, or IB classes? Not only are those potentially going to save credits in the college program, but they're also going to be a factor in determining how desirable your son or daughter is in getting admitted into that. Let's shift gears now to talk about the standardized tests. On the East and West Coast, SAT has been the predominant test vehicle. The ACT has been much more prominent in the Midwest, but those statistics are changing. The standardized tests are really the money test. This is what's going to really open up the floodgates for the merit aid and scholarships for your sons and daughters to the extent that they can do well on standardized tests. It is the quickest way to improve the student's academic ranking. They are going to look at grade point average as well as test scores, but when we're looking at the standardized test, it's the easiest thing to add 100, 200, 300 points onto an SAT score by doing a rigorous test prep just prior to taking those things. So both SAT and ACT are universally accepted. In fact, in 2012, for the first time, more kids across the country were taking the ACT compared to the SAT. This change in terms of prominence has forced the SAT to really restructure how they're going to be giving their tests, and they're going to be rolling out a completely new standardized test program starting in 2016. So that's going to be out there. One thing that you need to understand is that 1 out of every 3 kids is going to do significantly better on one test versus the other test. We don't always know what that is, but just as an example, the ACT offers a science component that the SAT doesn't. So sometimes if kids are very strong at subject material and are good at math and science, they may do better on the ACT versus the SAT. So you can almost always submit either score to any school. There are a few out there that have a preference, but those are really too few to mention even here tonight. So there are many options for preparing, but you need a strategy in place to maximize your test school results. Other attributes in terms of extracurricular activities, any activities are better than none, but overall, the schools understand that if you are participating in 8, 10, 12, 15 different clubs or other activities, they're going to see through that as a ploy to just say, I've got all this stuff going on. It is often much more beneficial from an admissions perspective to get down and really get deeper into 1 or 2 or 3 activities that you're really passionate about. So it's better off to either start a program or try to become a leader in a program to show something that can distinguish you from the other kids that are out there. And as well as any other special skills and abilities, whether that's athletic or artistic, music, drama, whatever it is, that's what you want to highlight in your application process. So moving on from the student marketing into the college search process, there is a huge difference in how kids approach it and how parents approach it. When we look at how typical kids are putting schools on their list, some of the reasons they pick them you're going to see on this slide here. Well, it's because my boyfriend or my girlfriend is going there, or it's a party school, or I just want to be a long way away from home, or they've got good sports teams. All of these things can be important factors to a kid. When my son Ryan was applying for college in 2010, he had gotten his accepted schools down to 2 schools, Northeastern University and Syracuse University. Well, like all kids, he said, how am I going to figure this out, Dad? And I said, well, you're going to have to go visit. So he piled in the car with a couple of his buddies that had also been accepted to Syracuse, and they headed off on a road trip. So it was a 2-day trip. They got to go to classes. They got to eat in the cafeteria. They got to go to some parties, stay overnight in the dorm rooms, get up the next day, do a few more things. And then Syracuse, because they're a great marketing school, pulled all the accepted students into the Carrier Dome out there, had flashing lights and music and the cheerleaders. And guess what happened? At the end of that process, I get a phone call from my son on the way home from Syracuse. Said, "Dad, I figured it out. I'm going to Syracuse." Well, Ryan, what made the difference? He said, "Well, they've got great sports teams here, and I want to be a fan. I want to paint my face orange. I want to be a crazy kid on Sports Center in the morning and get on TV." And Northeastern University is a great school, but they discontinued football 3 years ago, and I can't go to school there. So, some of these things make sense to them. Some of them make sense to us. And from a parent perspective, I was concentrating on 3 things as it came through to this, and that was money. How in the world are we going to pay for that? Syracuse University, when Ryan started going there, was just under $60,000 a year. And that's a tremendous financial burden on any family, and it was for our family as well. So all of these variables come in there. What kind of education is offered there? How close to home? How far away is it? What's going on in the whole program? It is critically important that the parents and the students have a dialogue that talk about how to pick the right colleges, what's going to work for you and what isn't going to work for you. There are over 4,000 colleges to choose from, and it's going to be important to start with that whole universe of schools there and to begin to filter it through a variety of student discovery, academic positioning, financial positioning, college visits, to get your school list down to 8, 10, 12 schools ultimately. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. The starting point for picking out the right school for them is it starts with a student assessment and student positioning. Based on your son or daughter's talents, ambitions, and desires, what kind of careers or majors are they naturally suited for? All of those types of things are going to become critical components in figuring out what schools to begin to put on the list, what type of college is the best personality fit for the student, and then you're going to compare that with how the student is doing with their academic positioning. Are they in the top of the class? Are they in the top 5 to 10% of their class? Or are they just barely making the cut? And then from a financial positioning standpoint, what types of schools that are out there that are going to best fit the financial structure of your family? Are you looking for some need-based aid, merit-based aid? What schools are going to be the best opportunity to get you the most free money that will help to defray the cost of this school that's going on out there? The next thing that's going to be involved are college visits and follow-up. It is critically important that you do a number of college visits. Students are evaluated based on their indications of interest, and colleges track that based on college fairs that they've attended, communications with the school, number of visits. And when you're doing these visits and you're setting up the appointments, it's always better to schedule an appointment with the college, get on the tour, sign in, let them know that you're interested enough to commit yourself to taking the time to go through this. When you're doing that, if this school is one of your top choices, you may want to also schedule an appointment with an academic advisor or a department head, or if you're into sports or music or drama, somebody in those departments to help them get to know you a little bit better than the average student. All of those things are little variables that can add up to a huge win for you when it comes time to apply and get accepted into the school of your choice. Now, one thing that a lot of kids never think about doing after they've met with somebody, an advisor or a counselor at the college, always make sure you get a business card from them so that you can do a follow-up email with them to thank them for taking time out of their schedule. That's going to go a long way to creating an impression, a favorable impression in their mind. Also be aware that social media is a big part of the admissions process. Many of the major colleges out there have full-time staff that do nothing but monitor the social media pages and activities to determine whether or not somebody is going to get knocked out of the admissions process. So since they're monitoring this process, the really smart kids are going to go out there, and when they do a visit with a school that they're very interested in, they're going to put a post out there. They're going to tweet about it. They're going to do a Snapchat. They're going to do something that says, hey, this was a great tour out here. What a great school. I'd really love to go here. And let that kind of feedback filter back into the admissions department. So there are a lot of other things that you can do. Finally, as you get approaching your senior year in high school, you're going to have to do the admissions process. This is something that requires a tremendous amount of organization. You have to decide early on, how are you going to apply to this school? Are you going to do early action, early decision, regular admissions? We have seen an explosion of kids applying early over the last 5 to 10 years. Part of this is tied to the admissions process, but another big part of it has to do with financial aid. Financial aid is a limited resource for the colleges and universities, and much of it is on a first-come, first-served basis. So if you're going to apply early and you're going to be one of the first kids accepted to the school, you're going to be first in line to get some financial aid money out there. So know the deadlines, know what the application deadlines, know what the financial aid deadlines. Apply early. You need to be extremely thorough. And finally, your last chance at putting your best foot forward is the admissions essay. This essay, in many cases, is the essay that is written in the Common Application process. In addition to that, many schools are looking for supplemental essays. So you want to be able to nail your essay. You want to also, in addition to the essay, get tremendous letters of recommendation. The sooner you begin to cultivate the reference letters that you're going to get from teachers, counselors, coaches, activity advisors, all of those things are critically important to get done early. So understanding the admissions process, what the deadlines are, and be one of the first kids to be in that queue to go for that. Now, you send the admissions in, the essays in, everything goes in. Now what you have to do is just wait. Much of the decision process these days has been transferred into electronic. So monitor the college websites to find out when the admissions decision is coming out. Are they going to send it out in snail mail? Is it going to be an email blast? Is it going to be announced on their website? You're either going to get in, denied, wait list is deferred. All of those things are possibilities depending on your college list. And as you finish up that first part, then you want to make sure that you're going to complete the financial aid process. This is the final part of this thing, which is how in the world am I supposed to pay for this thing? First thing that you want to do, how do I get my hands on other people's money? Whether that's in merit aid, need-based aid, tax scholarships, private scholarships, other family members, grandparents, whatever it is, the best way to pay for college is using other people's money. The next thing that you need to work on is how do you maximize your money in this situation with funding strategies? What do you do with your existing assets? If you've been one of the people that have been saving for years to pay for your kids' college, is that the best thing for you? Are there things that you can do with your existing assets to make the financial aid process more lucrative for you? Ultimately, almost every family wrestles with cash flow issues through the college years. They're going to be expecting you to pay much more money than most families can come up with. So cash flow, tax strategies, borrowing strategies are going to play a big part of the overall college funding strategy. And a well-designed, well-implemented plan can save you thousands and thousands of dollars each and every year. So all of these things are going to be important. Now, at this point, I want to shift gears to the need-based financial aid process. Years ago, financial aid was really given out primarily to the families that needed it the most. I just want to read this quote from U.S. News and World Report that said, it actually goes today to those people who know the most about the financial aid process. they're going to be looking at your income, your assets, the number of people in college, how big is the family, and a number of other factors for the need-based side of financial aid. The merit-based side is all based on how much they want your son or daughter to come into the financial aid, get into the school, and they're going to be looking at their attributes and how well they presented themselves and what they did through the whole enrollment management process in terms of their essays and all the things that went into that. So colleges are always looking to raise their standards and their statistics of what kind of a class they're putting together. They're going to be looking at class rank, grade point average, test scores. They use their dollars to attract kids that have a profile that is above average compared to the other applicants for each individual school year. They're going to give preferential treatment to the top 25% of applicants every year. So they're going to use their scarce dollars to attract people financially into that. College is a big business out there. So how well they do in terms of what percentage of the kids that they accept actually go there, that's called yield. There's a blurring of the lines between need-based and merit-based financial aid today that's getting very fuzzy, and it's important that you take everything into account when applying for school and deciding which school you're actually going to attend. Need-based financial aid is going to be coming from the federal government, state governments, private aid, all funneled through the financial aid department, and then they're going to decide how they're going to give that out in terms of scholarships, grants, work studies, loans, all of those processes. There's a determination, there's a formula that's going to be used in terms of how much aid you are entitled to. The formula is quite a simple formula, COA minus EFC equals need. COA stands for cost of attendance, and this is a total cost. It's not just tuition. It's tuition, it's fees, room and board, books, travel, miscellaneous. This is an all-in number that is calculated by the school, and it is recognized by the Department of Education as the total amount of money that you are entitled to borrow to go to school. We'll talk about borrowing a little bit later on, which has become another crisis in our country. But COA is cost of attendance. EFC stands for expected family contribution. That is the minimum amount that your family is going to be expected to pay each and every year that you have a son or daughter in college. The difference between those two is need. The need then is adjusted based on available resources to come up with an adjusted need. So the resources are any funds that are available to pay for college that are not accounted for in the EFC and may be coming from other sources. So this is the beginning point. Now let's go into a little bit deeper in terms of the formula that goes in there. There are four main components that go into the financial aid formula: parents' income, parents' assets, students' income, and students' assets. Begin with parents' income. What they're looking for parents' income is the adjusted gross income in the base income year. Adjusted gross income is usually taken off of the tax return. If you're filing a 1040, it's line 37 of your 1040. So adjusted gross income is the starting point. The base income year is the calendar year in which your son or daughter starts their senior year in high school. So if you have a 2016 high school graduate, 2015 will be the base income year, and they'll be looking at the adjusted gross income for the entire year. Now that's the starting point. If you are contributing money into a 401k or a 403b or an IRA, that money is almost always taken out pre-tax and put into your retirement accounts. The Department of Education says, not so fast. I know that the Treasury Department, the IRS, says you don't have to show that on your tax return, but we're going to add that money back in before we do your financial aid calculation for you. So adjusted gross income, line 37 on the 1040, plus whatever financial contributions you're making to your retirement accounts, that's the income that they're looking for. Now, they're starting with a base year, that calendar year that you're starting the senior year in high school. You have to do financial aid every year, so it's not a one-and-done type situation, but it's important to get your base income year as good as possible because they're going to do that calculation the first time and accrue financial aid for the next 4 years for you in that pool of money in the financial aid department. So base income year is particularly important. The next box on the formula talks about a living allowance. So the government says we're going to allow you a certain amount of money to live on each year, and that's part of this formula. So just as an example, in 2013, the living allowance for a family of 4 is $26,290. Now that's not per month, that's per year, $26,290. So I know the wheels are turning out there and you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, how do they expect us to live on that? Well, they're not expecting you to live on that. They're just saying we're going to allow that amount to live on. So you're already starting to see that they're going to expect a lot of money. So the living allowance is taken out, the amount of taxes you pay, the amount of Social Security that you're paying, all of those things go into the formula, and then it's multiplied times a factor. Now, you'll see on the slide that the factor is 22 to 47%. The reason for that is that there are two main formulas out there. There's a federal methodology and an institutional methodology. Both of them look at income and assets differently. There are sliding scales. So just for our purposes here through this workshop, let's just estimate that they're going to take about 25% of your income and put that over into the parent contribution for income. So when you're finished with this workshop, pull out your last tax return, look at line 37, add back in your retirement plan contributions, and as you're looking at those things, you're going to say, wait a minute, I've got $100,000 here times 25%. That's going to mean that they want $25,000 a year from me for college. And that's where this formula starts to get really, really tricky. If you're making $100,000 a year, they're saying you've got to come up with over $2,000 a month out of your cash flow to pay for college just based on your income alone. So that's how the income works for both parents and students. We'll get to the students in just a minute. The next category that they're going to look at are parent assets. Assets are going to fall into one category or another. They're going to be countable assets or non-countable assets. The non-countable assets are the good kind. They do not count in the formula. They're not going to hurt you. One of the non-countable assets for both public schools and private schools are your retirement accounts. So 401k, 403b, Simple, SEP, KEO, any kind of an IRA. Once the money is in there, it does not count. I know somebody's got a question out there, but Ron, you just said they add that back in. Well, they add the income contributions each year, gets added back into the first line, the income line. But once the money is in there, it does not count again in the formula. So non-countable assets are the retirement accounts once the money is in there. Another thing that does not count in the financial aid formula is the equity in your home. Equity is defined as the fair market value minus the debt equals the equity. So if you have a $400,000 house, $150,000 mortgage, you've got $250,000 of equity in that home. That does not count in the financial aid formula on the federal methodology. So if your sons or daughters are going to public schools, the equity in your home does not count. The institutional methodology, private schools count the equity in your home, and all schools count everything else. Cash, savings, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, investment properties, vacation homes, everything else counts in the financial aid formula. So we have countable, we have non-countable, and the parents are given an asset protection allowance. The asset protection allowance is calculated each year based on the age of the oldest custodial parent. So in 2013-14, that amount was about $40,000. So roughly speaking, you can set aside $40,000 of your accountable assets. That is not going to affect your financial aid calculation. Then there's a percentage that's applied to that. It can range from 5% to 12%. For our purposes here today, let's just assume that it's about 6% of your accountable assets is going to flow over into the parent contribution for assets. So you've got $100,000. They're going to want $6,000 per year from your assets. Now, over time, one thing that we see happening with parent assets is those checks keep getting sent out each month or each quarter or each year to the colleges and universities. Your parents' assets will tend to go down in value. So after 2, 3, 4, 5 years, most of the countable assets get used up in college expenses. So that factor goes away over time. The next area that they're going to look at is student income. Currently, students can earn over $6,000 per year with no negative consequence in the financial aid formula. But the next box over after student income and that $6,000 is that they're going to assess income above that level at a 50% rate. So let's say that your son or daughter is bagging groceries at the local grocery store, making $100 a week, doing a great job. They're making $5,000 a year, no problem. They get promoted. Now they're making $200 a week, okay? Now that $5,000 a year just went to $10,000 a year, and they're $4,000 above. That additional $4,000 of income is going to add $2,000 in terms of a student contribution from income. So just understand that that is a pretty big haircut on additional earnings, and many times kids are going to be better off doing an extra test prep, taking an AP class, starting a club, doing something else to generate more interest in them that they may make thousands of dollars back in terms of financial aid rather than earning the income. Student assets is the last category in the formula. There is no asset protection. They have the same countable, non-countable, but there are fewer kids that have retirement accounts or equity in their home, so mostly the student assets are countable assets. With no asset protection allowance and the formula counting 20 to 25% of their equity, having money in the kids' accounts is the last place that you want money to be. So when it comes time to fill out the financial aid forms for the first year, it's often good to try to do everything in your power to get the student asset line as close to zero as you possibly can. One question that comes up in a lot of workshops is, well, what about college savings accounts? The 529 accounts are countable assets, and they are currently part of the parents' assets. So that's the good news. Maybe not so good news is that they count the 529s from every student that's in the family. So if you have 3 kids and you've put $20,000 into each of the 529 accounts, when the first one gets ready to go off to school, they're going to add all 3 of them together and say you've got $60,000 of countable assets here. So just understand how that formula works and be prepared for all of the 529s to go there. The UGMA, UTMA accounts are trust accounts for the kids. Those are always characterized as student assets and are going to be subject to the 20 to 25% assessment on those assets. Let's do a quick case study now to really try to figure out how does this all play out. And Family A, Family B are taken from our records of actual clients. We've rounded them off to make the comparisons very close. So income at $90,000. They've saved $50,000 in college savings account, $50,000 in other savings in both families. They've got other real estate worth $50,000. 4 people in the family, 1 in school. So you'd say, well, Ron, they should have exactly the same expected family contribution number because we have the same inputs. But the reality is the expected family contribution for family A is almost double the family contribution for family B. So the question to you is it worth doing some early planning to try to get your EFC closer to the lower end of the range rather than the highest end of the range? And in almost every case, it makes some sense to at least consider the planning options that are available to get your family contribution number as low as possible. How do we figure out when this all happens? Applying for financial aid starts with the FAFSA. The free application for federal student aid is available January 1st of the senior year. So if you have a rising senior of 2015, January of 2015 is going to be when you can begin to fill out the financial aid forms. When you open it up, and you can't get to that before January 1st, they're going to be asking on January 1st, 2015, for your 2014 tax return information. Most people aren't going to have it completed at that point. However, because of the first-come, first-served nature of financial aid, it is going to be important for you to get into there and get your information in as soon as possible. From an income perspective, you're going to be able to do an estimate of your 2014 income. So you want to have a lot of your year-end data available to you, even though you don't have all your tax return information yet, and get an estimated FAFSA in as soon as possible. We would like to target the middle of January as being when you want to get that first FAFSA in to meet all of the financial aid deadlines. If you've applied early action or early decision, many of the schools are going to ask you to use the previous year's FAFSA or use the CSS profile as a proxy for financial aid. The CSS profile is required by many of the private schools, and it's available to register for the CSS profile as early as October of the senior year. Many schools have their own institutional forms, and there are a laundry list of other forms that are going to be out there. If you have any Schedule E or Schedule C income, you probably are going to need to do a business supplement. Divorced, separated families have a whole other set of forms that are going to be filled out with different deadlines. There are verification returns, tax returns, data retrieval tools. There's a lot of stuff going on in terms of getting all the financial aid things. And much of the communication on this whole financial aid filing system is communicated directly to the kids. Because of privacy laws, a lot of this stuff is not communicated with the parents. It's communicated with the kids. And you want to make sure that you're not missing any of the financial aid deadlines. So it's important to stay on top of the whole financial aid filing system. Just wanted to show you what the federal government does with all the information that comes in. So we pulled a simplified flow chart from the Department of Education's website. This gives you a little idea that it's not really a simple process. It's simple to fill out some of the forms, much more difficult to fill other ones, but there are thousands and thousands of dollars at stake here, and you may want to make sure that this gets done properly. Three main categories of family from a financial aid perspective, and a Category 1 family is probably going to get need-based aid at any school that they apply to. Category 2 families are probably going to get some financial aid at some schools, not get some at others. Category 3 families are probably not going to get any need-based aid from any schools based on their income and their assets. But merit-based aid is available to any category of family. So regardless of where you are, it's important to understand your position and know that if I'm not eligible for need-based aid, what can I do to position myself to get the maximum amount of merit aid out of the entire financial aid system? Now, not all schools meet need in the same way. What I mean by that is that many of the more expensive schools out there use their higher list price to rebate more money to the students out there that they're really trying to attract to the school. So let's take a look at School A versus School A. School A is more of a proxy for a private school. School B is more of a proxy for a public school. And the private schools have a tendency to push closer to meeting 100% of need versus the public schools that may only meet 50, 60% of the need. So as you can see on this slide, if you're meeting 100% of the need, there is no shortfall. If you're meeting 60% of the need, that additional 40% is short. And so what you would actually pay in the school with an EFC of $15,000 at the private school, you've got to pay that, but there's no unmet need. So the $15,000 is the total cost. You're going to get $28,000 of gift aid, $7,000 of self-help. So not a bad package. At the lesser school, because they're only meeting 60% of the need, then you're looking at coming up with the $15,000 EFC, which is, again, the minimum that you have to spend, as well as the unmet need. If they're not meeting it, you have to. So that $15,000 plus $6,000 comes up to $21,000, and then the gift aid and the self-help is a smaller amount. So in some cases, the higher list price school is the less expensive school to attend, and it's important that you know sooner than later what schools are going to fit into each one of those categories. After you've applied for school, been accepted, all the financial aid forms are in there. The financial aid offer letters are going to start coming out from the schools in January, February, March of the senior year. When you're looking at going to a $20,000, $40,000, $60,000 a year school, it's very similar to paying and buying a new car at the beginning of each school year. And at the end of that school year, you're going to drive that car right off the cliff and buy the kids another new car. And I bring that up because if you were in the market for a $50,000 or $60,000 car, do you think it might make some sense to negotiate with the sales manager of the car store before you decide on what school? And quite frankly, you can negotiate with some of the financial aid departments if you have a cause for an appeal. They're going to be looking for some kind of substantial authority to go back and say, hey, we can give you more money. Either we've made a mistake, we did a misaward, we underawarded, they gapped it. One thing that a lot of people don't think about until it's too late is trying to get competitive offers. So I mentioned to you that my son Ryan attended Syracuse University. In fact, he's a recent graduate from there. But he has a younger sister, Jacqueline, who's going to Tufts University in Medford, Massachusetts. And when Jacqueline applied, she applied early decision. She had a top choice school that she wanted to go to. She had 4 other schools that were more of a match or a safety school for her that she applied early action to. I asked her to add one more school to that list, and that one more school was a competitive school for her number 2 choice, which was Boston University. Now, Jacqueline got accepted to Boston University and got a terrific merit award from Boston University. She also got accepted to Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. Their financial aid award was 25% better than Boston University. Now, as much as money is important to me, I wasn't going to force my daughter to go to Cleveland because she wanted to stay in the Boston area, which is where we live. However, if she hadn't gotten into Tufts, her first choice school, which she did, she would have gone to BU. I would have taken that competitive offer that was 25% better and taken that offer down to BU and asked them to match the competitive offer. So as you're putting the school list together for the right fit for the students from an emotional or psychological standpoint, you also want to consider, are there any schools out there from a financial standpoint that I want to put on the list for competitive reasons? You're fishing for competitive offers. So we've had a lot of success this year doing negotiations with our clients when they have good competitive offers from comparable schools to the ones that their kids want to go to. It results in tens of thousands of dollars of additional merit awards coming out of the schools. So it's really important. We're going to wrap up today with the real question of this whole process. And we've covered a lot of ground from admissions. What is it going to take to get into the schools? How are we going to pay for it? How do we get through the financial aid process? And as we're looking at Family A and Family B, and looking at a $26,000 EFC versus a $13,000 EFC, the real question is, how did this happen? And if you're picking the wrong schools, you didn't do a great job in the admissions process, you've got no clue as to how to pay the out-of-pocket costs, you're going to end up with a lot of problems when it comes time to getting all of your kids through school without bankrupting yourself. If you're picking the right schools, you do a great job in the admissions process with the applications, the SS, the marketing, all of those things, and have a plan in place at how to get all of the kids through school without going bankrupt. That's worth a lot of money. And the question that you have to answer for yourself is, which family do you want to be? It doesn't happen by accident. So I want to thank you for your time and attention here today. There are a lot of products and services that the College Resource Center is offering to families. There's one-on-one counseling. We have a variety of additional workshops, self-directed internet products. All of these things are going to be available to you, but we wanted to give you this educational format here at the beginning. We want to thank you for your time and attention, and have a great day. Thank you. Workshop. Let's just estimate that they're in value